I thought you had to really love yourself before you could love someone else. And I even told Philip this. I was like, I'm gonna go to therapy and then you can get engaged to me and then we can get married.
I don't necessarily need you to solve my problems because there will be a lot when you're an entrepreneur, but I would love for you to just be there and give me a hug at the end of the day, or to say, hey, you did a good job.
I will be open to have someone walk in my life and I'll be ready for it, knowing the fact that I'm still working on myself.
Another episode of Dear ABG, where we answer your listener submitted questions. If you don't know us by now, we are ABG Asian Boss Girl, a podcast for the modern day Asian American woman. My name is Helen.
I'm Janet.
And I'm Mel.
And before we get into our questions, I'm gonna ask a fun question. If you were a sandwich, what type of sandwich would you be?
I would be a hummus and alfalfa sprout sandwich.
Oh,
that's so Janet.
She would be.
Yes. I'm envisioning a specific sandwich at Earth Cafe in LA. They have one, I don't know what kind of bread they use, but it's like a good amount of hummus and a good amount of alfalfa sprouts. And then they use tomato and avocado. It's just like really refreshing, but very like hearty.
Alfalfa sprouts.
Yeah.
You say alfalfa?
Alfalfa sprouts.
My sandwich, I would be a hot pastrami sandwich from Togo's. It's jam-packed with flavor. It's a lot to handle. And it tastes better when it's toasted. The pastrami sandwich from Togo's literally is my childhood because my mom would get it for me for lunch. And I'm like, it's just so freaking good.
Yeah.
The nostalgic component.
So you'd be a hot sandwich.
I'd be oh, for sure, hot sandwich.
I honestly keep thinking about Bokumoko's Taiwanese fried chicken sandwich.
Oh.
Actually, that's a good. Helen would definitely be a fried chicken sandwich.
I'd be a fried ass chicken sandwich. I think, you know what it is? Because I was trying to think of the type of bread, and I think the pineapple bun, like the bolo bun, is sweet. Like there's a,
Sweetness.
a little sweetness to me. And then it sandwiches. Okay. I feel like on the inside, it's like organized chaos.
Oh.
We are analyzing the shit out of the sandwich right now.
Yeah, Helen loves chicken, so I definitely,
Yes.
and I feel like of all the ways that chicken is prepared, fried is a good analogy for like, I think it's once again the impact of flavor, right?
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't be like boiled chicken, or what are other ways to prepare chicken?
Just not like that. Sorry.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, these are definitely good examples of us as sandwiches. Which one would you eat?
Our first listener submitted question today comes from Melody. We have another Melody.
Oh, nice.
But this one from NYC, and Melody's question, she writes, 7 months ago, my boyfriend quit his corporate job to dive full-time into his startup. We celebrate wins together, his first bulk corporate order, first intern hire, etc. But sometimes he's stressed about unexpected problems and he's a little lonely being the only full-timer on this. How can I, as a partner, help, encourage, and support my boyfriend? As full-time entrepreneurs, what kind of support would you like from your friends or significant other?
That is such a sweet question to ask. I think with that question, Melody, beautiful name by the way, I could just tell you're a very thoughtful girlfriend. You're trying your hardest to be there for him. I think it's amazing you're already celebrating the wins, like getting that first intern, getting your first hire, and all these things. For us, that's a win for us as entrepreneurs. Maybe setting aside like intentional time for him to just vent to you. I know these things kind of happen last minute, like really random times during the day, and I'm sure you work 9 to 5 and you're probably on your own schedule. And I'm trying to think from like your perspective, like how can I be there for him as I'm managing my own full-time job? And so for me, I would probably just, maybe use dinner or have like that hour in the afternoon, like, hey, do you want to talk about some things? Just use this time to vent and I'll be all ears for you. Versus like, I can see a situation where you're like, I'm also doing my meeting and I need to be here for him, and you're probably juggling that component. So maybe just setting aside like intentional time every single day where he could just vent and you could also vent about what's going on. Another advice I would give to you that I don't know if you guys have access to, but what benefits, us, and for me personally, like having other entrepreneur friends to go to, because they're going through the same journey and same like struggles as I am, and their schedule is a little similar to mine. So if your boyfriend has any friends or maybe even a networking group that he could reach out to, that would be really helpful for him. I know when I'm feeling lost, even during the random times of the day, I have someone to text who's also an entrepreneur. That really helps me. So maybe just finding other resources for him or a network for him to connect with.
I think I'm in a little bit of a unique situation to answer this question because both Philip and I are entrepreneurs. So, I guess I could see both sides of it, of what we both want to receive. It's a little more difficult when you're both sort of in this world, but at the same time, I could see why it's easier for us to support each other. Like Mel was saying, one thing that we always do is that when we both get home, even if it's like for 5 minutes, we just like, how was your day? You know, like what made you smile today? What made you sad today? And it opens up a lot of conversation that maybe you didn't even expect. And if this is his passion project, ask him questions. I'm sure he really wants to talk to you about, you know, what he's working on. He wants you to be invested. And if you aren't doing that yet, I would suggest, you know, being very interested in what he's doing, because he would really appreciate that. And I think separately, just when it comes to like relationships and love, figure out what his love language is. I think that is something that I have to work on with Philip, because if you are, say, doing chores around the house, you're washing dishes, you're cleaning up after him, you're picking up his socks, but his love language is not acts of service and it's really words of affirmation, maybe he's not really caring as much that you're doing all these things for him. Maybe instead, if you write a note for him that says like, you're doing great, babe, I'm so proud of you, leave it on his desk, tell him every day that like you're proud of him, maybe that actually will make him feel more seen and feel more loved. So try maybe going that route if this is something you're struggling with.
This question comes at an interesting time because I recently was kind of seeing someone and talking to them, and we work a lot, right? And so I kind of came into the situation where he was like, how can I support you? And I had never been in that situation to think about that. And what I realized for myself is 3 things. One is carving out time just to talk to him. And so we would just, you know, siphon out like an hour to catch up at night. And usually my time would be filled with catching him up on my day. And usually my day is around work related stuff. So for me, it's helpful just to have someone to listen, for me to talk and process. Second thing is like, I shared with him my personal goals. I was trying to get in yoga more frequently, meditation. So he would constantly kind of be like, hey, if it sounds like I was stressed, like, did you do your meditation today? You can help him like be held accountable for his personal goals. Third thing, if we were in person, which, you know, COVID, we were not really that, but I think one thing I know that I love a lot from a partner sometimes is I don't necessarily need you to solve my problems, because there will be a lot when you're an entrepreneur, but I would love for you to just be there and give me a hug at the end of the day, or to say, hey, you did a good job. So I think that's where you communicate with him, or have him communicate with you, what is his way of receiving love? Is it a hug? Is it a positive, like, you did an amazing job? Maybe it's cooking him a meal, or like bringing him a snack or something like that, so.
All right, next question comes in the form of a voicemail from Kenneth. I'm gonna play that right now.
Hi, ABG. My name's Kenneth, and I'm probably one of your few male listeners, but I just want to say first, I love you guys, and I love listening to your podcast while driving or working out. My question for you girls is, how do you balance focusing on yourself and personal growth while also searching for a partner? I feel like sometimes people frame it in this all or nothing way, as if you can't find someone unless you're perfect yourself, or that you're somehow unlovable unless you love every part of yourself. And I just feel kind of helpless sometimes because I don't know if I'm ever going to get there. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Oh, that's so sweet. I feel like we just want to hug you. Thank you so much. We love our ABBs out there, and thank you so much for submitting your question. So one of the reasons that I went to therapy last year, a year and a half ago, prior to my engagement, was because I thought this same exact thing. I thought you had to really love yourself before you could love someone else. And I even told Philip this. I was like, I'm gonna go to therapy and then you can get engaged to me and then we can get married. Because even though we had a solid relationship up to the point of engagement, I believe that if you have open wounds, it's not fair to bleed on someone else and expect them to clean up that blood for you. Just to give a very gory analogy. I think as long as you continue to keep working on yourself, if you keep working on those internal demons, trying to better yourself, become a better version of yourself tomorrow than you were today, then you are doing the work. Because at the end of the day, none of us are perfect and all of us are worthy of love. So please remember that. And it sounds like you're already trying to do the work here by even asking this question. So just know that you are on the right path, even with this question.
I feel like in the most of my like adult, like now I'm like 35. So the last like 10 years I've been trying to date, but then going through this process of working on myself. And I've gone back and forth and constantly hear this like mantra that, you know, when you're single, it's an opportunity for you to work on yourself. And I was like, but I've been working on myself for like 10 years now, you know, like how much work can I do? And I did used to really, really believe that there were periods where I was not in any form to be in a relationship. You will know better than anyone else in your gut if you think that you would be ready to have someone else in your life. No one is ever going to be perfect. You're always going to be working through stuff, but there will be points in life where you might feel like, ooh, I don't have love to give someone else right now, right? So if you feel that, then probably it's time to like take a little break and just focus on yourself. But if you're like, I'm working through these things, but I'm not perfect, like, no one's perfect. Whoever you're gonna find is also gonna be working through his or her own shit, right? So, yeah. So I like this question because my conclusion now is like, yes, there have been periods where I haven't wanted to date, not because by some outward evaluation I wasn't perfect enough, but because I didn't feel like I could accept someone into my life. But if you are asking this question and you're desiring to have someone else in your life, like I think you can totally do that while working on yourself at the same time.
I completely agree with what you both said. No one's perfect, and your question made me think a lot about where I am currently. I think right now I'm in a rebuilding mindset. I don't think I'm perfect whatsoever, but I still believe that I deserve love. For me, I think it depends on the person. But in terms of finding a partner in this state of mind, I feel like you get to a place internally, it's like a gut feeling, you're like, I think I'm growing and I'm okay with the process of growth I'm at. And with that mindset, I'm like, I will be open to have someone walk in my life and I'll be ready for it, knowing the fact that I'm still working on myself. Like Helen mentioned, I think all of us are constantly growing and evolving. I would really hope that my partner understands that I am gonna be growing outside of you and I want to grow, not because of you, but because of me. I think that's what would make me and my partner stronger as a duo, is to have that mentality of like, you know, outside of each other, I'm gonna grow because that's naturally we're gonna grow, and I just wanna be a better version of myself, knowing that there's no perfect end goal I'm aiming for. It's just like a feeling of like, hey, I think I need to work on my self-confidence. I could feel it, so I'll work on it until I feel like I'm in a good place. But for me, I think self-confidence and growth is like, it is an eternal feeling that I'll just feel like I'm good. Like for example, last year I wasn't in a good mental space. I could feel it and I couldn't handle a relationship. This year I feel like I'm on this like uphill climb of bettering myself, and I could feel confidence in this inner like sense of growth, and I'm okay with that. And if a person will walk in right now, yeah, I'm still growing, but I think I'd be okay with it. But if not, it's okay. I'm still growing and I'm still taking care of myself. So whenever the time happens, I'll be ready and I'll be growing still.
And that wraps today's episode of Dear ABG. Thank you so much for joining us. And for those who submitted questions, thank you so much. If you would like to submit a question, you can leave us a voicemail or submit a form. You can go to our Instagram at Asian Boss Girl and look in our link in bio.
And again, we are a podcast for the modern day Asian American woman called ABG, Asian Boss Girl. You can find us on all the podcasting platforms like Spotify or Apple Podcast. But for now, we'll catch you on the next video. Bye. That was not a fart.
And especially, and it sounds, and if he, okay.
It's like radio on my left side.
Oh.